Recreating Shea Sullivan's makeup look that she did on her wedding really inspired me and brought me back to why I even do content in the first place. And that is to help out my brides if they're even looking for inspiration on their wedding day or even looking for a makeup artist to help them on their wedding day. That is really why I'm here. So let's go back to the basics and let's do bridal tutorials. Today, I'm actually doing this look, which is my signature look. Let me go ahead and show you how I got it. Firstly, I'd like to start with an exfoliator pad. I really like this one by Glow Recipe. I also use the First Aid Beauty one, but Glow Recipe kind of came out with these mini travel packs recently. So I've been using these and I've also been putting them in my kit. So they've been very helpful recently. I just like to make sure that the face has nothing on it, everything is taken off, even though I've washed my face, but still, I like to make sure that my brides have absolutely nothing on their skin. Now, I really got the kit for the PDRN Repair and Soothe toner pads. I've been really adding this under the eyes to just let it settle under the eyes of my brides while I'm also working on their eyes. As I said, I like to work on the eyes first, so I'm taking my brow lamination gel from L'Oreal and just going ahead and laminating those eyebrows. Now, personally, I don't use an eyeshadow primer. I like taking a concealer, so I'm using the Too Faced Born This Way concealer, and I'm using that to blank out my lids and also carve out my eyebrows and give me a nice base for the shadows. Once I put the concealer on, I just take a flat brush and I just carve out underneath my brows. Nothing too crazy, but I do like a nice clean brow. And just tap everything in. And once the brows are carved out, I just tap in all the concealer on my eyelid just to make sure that it completely covers the entire eyelid and gives us one blank canvas. Now, we don't want the base to be sticky because we use concealer, so I am taking my Charlotte Tilbury powder, just a nice pressed powder, and using a powder puff and just pressing that into the concealer just so that our eyeshadow doesn't actually stick to the concealer and become really patchy. Now for eyeshadow, I love a good warm tone brown palette. This is probably my favorite, the Patrick Ta medium palette in the Major Dimensions, like those newer ones that he's come out with. And this is what I usually use to create majority of my looks. I start off with these two light brown shades on a very fluffy brush. And I keep the eye open and I start off in this outer V corner and then I bring it into the crease, like the higher crease. I keep the eyes open because it really helps me guide where the eyes are supposed to be or where everything's supposed to be when your eye is actually open. Now that we have that first transition shade exactly where we want it to be, I like to go a little deeper into the outer corner and just really give some definition to the eye. I'll either take this dark brown or this dark brown. I don't want to go too dark on it yet, but I usually go between those two. And I still keep the eye open, and this time I'm really just leaving it in that V. I go a little bit more in, not as out, but I like to just leave it here. I don't like to bring it all the way up into the crease. It's because my eyes are pretty small. I don't have a lot of lid space, so I like to keep my eyes open and bright as much as possible. Now, a trick I did learn from another makeup artist is instead of using a brush to really open up the eyes after we've used all this brown, is to take that powder puff and that same pressed powder, tap it in there just like the tip of it or the front, and then you can pat that into the eye and that'll cause it to open it up so much more. Again, personally, I love a good brown chocolatey lash line. I can either use a eyeliner or I'll go straight in with powder. And now we're actually going to take that darker powder on like more precise, even like a pencil brush or a really flat brush. And I'll just use that right on the lash line. I don't want to go too far in as well. And I don't want to wing this out. I kind of want to blend it together with that deeper tone that I used prior on the outer V. This just helps it not look as precise. It looks pretty diffused and it really just blends in with the eye. And now one thing about me, I love a good bright inner corner. So I'm actually going to take that really bright nude color, the first color in the palette. I'm going to take a more flat brush, but a bigger flat brush. I'm just going to make that brighten up that inner corner. Sometimes I like to add it a little bit to the top just to really open up the eyes. You see how that's still brightened up the eyes a lot? Now at this point right here, you can pause, put some lashes on, curl your lashes, put on some mascara. I love a good lash cluster. So I'm just gonna add on some lash clusters to the ends of my eyes. Again, I like to keep my eyes open and bright as possible. Your base is only as good as your skin prep. So I'm going in with my Thayer's Hydrating Milky Toner. I already put on my eye gel. It's the Good Molecules Wake Up Eye Gel. I put that on before I actually let the PDRN mask sit under my eyes, so that the gel had time to soak in. Then I'm going with my Clarins Double Serum. I feel like this, again, is very hydrating. And as an oily skin girl, as a dry skin girl, you want to be very hydrated under makeup, especially if you're going to be wearing makeup all day. Then for moisturizer, of course, the Tatcha Dewy Skin Moisturizer. Again, it may not be like for an oily girl, but love this moisturizer. This hydrating glow on the skin is exactly what you're looking for prior to putting on your base. Now, if your wedding is during the daytime and it's also outside, I suggest going in with a sunscreen, and specifically a mineral sunscreen that has zinc oxide in it. It helps reduce the oil, but still giving you the protection of sunscreen. I know not many mineral sunscreens are also brown girl or black girl friendly, but this one by Ultraviolet or something like that, definitely brown skin friendly because white cast wear. Now, anyone that knows me knows that there's never a base routine that I will never do without my primer duo. Again, the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Water Powder Serum and the Blurring Balm in Universal. These are the minis that I got in that little pouch because I also keep this in my kit, but I also travel with these as well. I start off with a few drops of the serum and I rub that into the entire skin. And now that that has dried down, I like to take the Universal Balm, especially into the parts that I have more open pores, and really press that into the skin. And this just acts like a blurring shield. Like you can already see here that my pores are completely blurred out. Now my foundation might not be super high end, but these perform absolutely like a high end foundation. It's the Maybelline Superstay Lumi Matte Foundations. They have 30-hour wear, and that's exactly what they give. They show that they have 30-hour wear. They have a Lumi matte like finish. It is absolutely stunning and perfect. Right now I'm in the shade 322 and 330. And then using my BK Beauty brush, just tapping into the foundation on the back of my hand, and just look at the coverage and the color match of this product. Like, I know you don't see any more dark spots, any scarring. Like, that is my skin. That is literally my skin. Stunning formula and at a beautiful cost, let me tell you. Now for bronzer, I'm taking the Juvia's Place Pot Bronzer. It's in the shade Caramel. And we're just going to lightly tap into that and make a circle motions above the actual line of your cheek. This is more where we would put our contour. This is more of a bronzer, so it goes just a bit above it, and we're going to add some warmth to the face. Lightly tap and make sure that all the bristles of my brush are coated, and then tap in circular motions because that will really help diffuse the actual color. We're also going to run a bit of this on the side of our nose, really measuring up with that eyebrow and really bringing it in, but I don't do too much. Now for blush, I love a good pink blush on my brides. I think it just looks so stunning, youthful, and tea, if I may say. But we have to start with layering blushes. So actually I'm taking a more peach blush by Patrick Ta called in the shade She's the Moment. And with my Makeup by Mario F4. And again, I'm putting that more to the back of the blush placement, which is just right above the bronzer. And I'm kind of blending this in with my bronzer. Now taking a more brighter pink, it's the LYS Duo blush. This is in the shade Humble, and I'm still going in with that same brush. And I'm taking this more on the apples of my cheeks and kind of the eyes. Again, I like to be blushed out. And this is the only time I really take color corrector. I'm using the Kosas Revealer Extra Bright Color Corrector. This one's in the shade Illusion. And I'm using that to really add some brightness to this pink. And I kind of take that right in the middle of under my eye, but not under my eye exactly. I like this to add some brightness under there and also like really brighten the eyes so we can have that pink illusion, literally. I'm going to go in with my BK Beauty Angie Hot and Flashy brush in the shade A506. And I don't really let that one sit down to dry. I kind of go right in and just tap that under the eye and even cut out some of that eyeshadow so you can get a really crisp eyeshadow. Now the under eyes are super pink and super blended. I like to take my regular concealer shade. This is also the Kosas Revealer Concealer, and this is in the shade 5.8N. And I like to go everywhere that I like normally conceal. So I'll put just a little bit under the eye, not as much. And I'm putting that one more into the center of the eye and not exactly where I place the color corrector. I like to take another concealer that actually is more of my skin tone, and I put that underneath where I would have the bronzer just to really sharpen that up. We want to look fierce today. It's our wedding day. I do let that concealer sit for a bit just for optimal coverage, but I start off by blending everywhere where I kind of want as much coverage. So we'll go with under the bronzer. So again, now we're really snatched now. And then we'll go on the forehead, and I'll take a more fluffy brush. This is my Real Techniques brush. And this, oh, I actually have some, it's supposed to be a setting brush. I'm assuming it's an under eye setting brush. That's not my business. Now it is my brush for my concealer. To diffuse some of that sharpness, I'll just take my foundation brush and just pat over it. So it's not as sharp, but it is still very clean. I want to keep this right in the center and not too far out. So we're going to tap right on top of it, keep it right in the center, a bit under the eye, but more to the center, because I really just wanted it brighter, but still my skin tone. Now, finally, one of the most important steps is powder. I love powdering down my face. I feel like that's what really locks in this makeup. So we're going in with my Makeup by Mario setting powder. This is in the shade Neutral Peach. And I'm going in with a puff, and I'm taking a generous amount on that puff, circling around in the lid and also tapping off some of the excess and making sure that it's nice and flat on that powder puff. I go back in with the same brush that I used to blend out my concealer, and I make sure I'm looking up continuously, make sure I blend it out, and I'm looking up. And now we're just going to tap all of this powder in. We're going to tap it in gently, and then we're going to really press everything in. And now we're bulletproof. We are locked and loaded and bulletproof. Do we see this? Yeah. And personally, I feel like that's just setting. That's not baking. I love to add just a nice little layer again that I would bake, I guess, right where my pores are shown. I like to tap on a little extra right there. And then I take a little powder and then set everywhere else that I put on concealer. While I let the loose powder settle into the skin, this is when I actually like to go back to the eyes and just finish those up. I love to add shadow underneath the eyes. I feel like it complements and completes the whole entire eye. So I'm going right back into the same palette that we used on top. And I'm taking those first two light shades on a more pencil brush and really just diffusing that underneath the lash line. It doesn't have to be precise. We just want a little bit of shadow under there, a little bit of color. Not a lot of my brides actually like eyeliner, so for them, I like to just, again, use a shadow as an eyeliner. I'm not going to use that dark shade that I used for the liner on top. I'm going to go back into those same two dark browns that I used for the outer corner. And I'm just going to run that more towards the lash line, just to add a little bit more definition to the lash without actually being eyeliner and without it actually being too dark for them as well. Now finishing up my powders, I'm taking the Juvia's Place Bronzer Duo. I love using these bronzer duos. It's so easy to pack. There's two shades just in case. And I'm actually going to take both of the shades. This is in the shade Tan on a big fluffy brush. This is my Jessup FO2 brush. I'm going to tap that onto my bronzer. We're not going to swipe it. We want to tap it so that it looks nicely airbrushed and diffused. And then with blush, we're doing the same two blushes because they were both duos. I'm taking, again, the Patrick Ta She's the Moment blush first. This is a more corally pink on a nice fluffy Morphe brush. And I'm taking that more on the further back end of my blush. Because of how fluffy this brush is, it already kind of work for us. And then I'm going with the other side of the LYS blush in the shade Hum. This definitely adds a bit of glow to my brides as well. And we're mostly taking that on the apples of the cheeks. You see? But that looks just stunningly gorgeous. to really set everything down and make sure that the skin is just even. I'm taking my MAC Studio Fix powder in the shade NC40 and a pretty dense, fluffy brush and just tapping everywhere where the foundation basically laid down. But this can also be like an eraser, and this will just make everything airbrushed. Going with my first set, this is the Morphe Life Proof Continuous Setting Mist. This is more of my wet set, so I take this to settle down all the powders, make it really settle into the skin and not look as powdery. And this also gives you that little glow without actually adding any glow to your skin. All right, while that dries down into the skin, I'm gonna work on the eyebrows. Really, everything's already set for me with the eyebrows because we already did that in the beginning. I'm just using my Morphe Micro Eyebrow Pencil and just filling in any sparse lines. I don't like to do too much. Again, eyebrows, I feel like are the shoes to the face. So I feel like when the eyebrows are done crazy is probably when the bride actually is like confused about her look. So I like to keep the eyebrows as natural to their eyebrows as possible. Of course, if they don't have eyebrows, then you gotta do something more. But I like to keep it as natural as possible. I am an oily gal, but I like to create my glow instead of actually letting it happen. So I'm gonna use my Dior Glow Maximizer palette. I love using these two shades on my skin tone, but I love that there's like a quad, so I can actually use it on multiple skin tones. If you're a girl that loves a good under eye brightening, but you don't feel like you're getting it with any of your other products, I love to add my under eye brightener. And this is the Eyelights palette by Mitchell. And I like to use just a little bit of this powder because a little bit goes a very long way. And just tap a little bit under the eye. It makes it very smooth, but it also makes it really bright. So now we're just a tad bit brighter than we were before. And personally, I love that. And then finish off the look with your favorite pinky nude lip combos and you are ready to go get married, girl. Again, this is my like bridal glam that I love to do on most of my brides. It looks good on everyone and every skin tone. And I think it'll look great on you too. Let me know if you guys try it out in the comments and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.